Paul, Joe, are you still there?
Right, I think we're there. We are now live. Good evening, everybody.
Good
we
evening.
Are here for our next live stream. We are in Montmartin-en-Graignes in Normandy. Joining me today, I'll put it back on gallery view, Joe Balkoski from... We are now live. Hang on. Good evening, everybody. Right, I think we're there. We are now live. Live stream. Hang on. My audio is going weird. Hang on. Right, we're here. Sorry, technical difficulties there. Wouldn't connect very well firstly. So I'm here. Joe Balkoski is joining us from the USA, and live on site is Florent Plana, who I will call Flo this evening. And we're going to take you on the adventure of the 175th Regiment of the 29th Division pushing out towards Montmartin-en-Graignes and the Vire River 76 years ago today. And hopefully we will beat the weather. It has been raining early today. It's better now. If you look at what the weather behind Flo there, it's actually, I've just muted your microphone there accidentally, Flo, sorry. You're muted, Flo. That was my fault.
Can you hear me right now?
I can hear you now, yeah. Sorry, technical difficulties, everybody. Right, I'm going to start with a situation map to explain what this the Allied Army was facing this day on June the 12th. So let me show you that and bring up a map. So here is a map that shows the Allied beachhead as it was on June the 12th, so 76 years ago today. And we're focusing, if you follow my mouse, on this area here, the very narrow beachhead between the Utah Beach 7th Corps area over here and the Omaha Beach 5th Corps area over here. And what we're talking about is the attempts to broaden the beachhead across the Vire River near Montmartin-en-Graignes in this area here. I'll stop sharing that one and bring up another image to find it. And this, if you watch the Carenton show a couple of days ago, there's the same map we used in that one. So we were in Carenton last time. Now we're moving east, and Flo is down here near Montmartin-en-Graignes. This is not to be confused with Graignes, another village where the 101st and 82nd were over to the west. This is another village, Montmartin-en-Graignes, and you can see it's just south of Isigny-sur-Mer. And in a second, I'm going to hand over to Flo and Joe to carry on this story. I'm just going to show you Flo's image. This is the image he has created to show you where we're going to go over the next hour or so. And this is a Google image with his stops 1, 2, 3, and 4, progressing down from near the Vire River where he is now to La Haye, our final stop, and telling this quite tragic story of the 175th Regiment in this area here, little known story. So I'm going to ask Flo to tell Joe and Flo. Joe will come in a minute. I'm going to ask Flo to explain where he is and how this story is going to go. So
all right,
you, Flo.
So first of all, I would like to say thank you very much, Paul, to invite me, this wonderful live, because I met actually two men that were here 76 years ago, and this is how I started to do some research about it. And you can imagine that very soon after, I read books about Joseph Balkoski mentioning all those events that happened here just about 30 minutes from where I'm living. So it's quite an honor to talk about that today. I just wanted to say that. And the two men that actually I've met were part of this operation are George Lipovsky was a part of the 175th Infantry Regiment H Company. We'll talk about that later. And Steve Melnikov, who's 100 today, and he was part of C Company, and they were both part of the crossing of the Vire River right here where we are on the eastern part of Montmartin. So just to give you a quick overview, Omaha Beach is right there. If you just go from here straight to there, it's between 20, 25 kilometers. Today there's so many tiny roads, so it takes more than that. But Utah Beach is right there, and actually we're right there in the middle. So the 175 Infantry Regiment didn't land on June 6, 1944. They landed after. So the first element, if I'm correct, landed on June the 7th, and afterward went to southwest. The first went to Angleville-la-Perthée, near southwest near La Combe, to take afterward Isigny. The 116 and 115 are different objective, but the 175th went south after Isigny. That was liberated on June the 9th, 1944. We went today actually to see the plaque to commemorate the liberation of the city on June the 9th. And later on, The 175th received a very special mission. Actually, not the entire regiment, but two companies, C and E company, received the mission of crossing the Vire River to actually secure two bridges here and here. I don't know if you can see them. I tried to draw a little map showing the two bridges, the bridge going toward Graignes and the other bridge going towards Saint-Jean-de-Dey. So they were trying to cross the Vire River with the objective of securing those two bridges to prevent a counterattack. Because as you can imagine, we have forces coming from Omaha Beach and we have forces coming from Utah, including the 101 Airborne Division, with the objective of securing Carentan and making the link up with the 29th Division to form a beachhead. You know, we always talk about the beachhead. But the first element of the, you know, the 101 Airborne Division and the 29th Division made the connection, you know, just a little bit north of Montmartin. And I mean, there are a lot of things to say, but today, right now, where we are standing today, it's where the elements of the 175th Regiment E Company crossed the river right there. If you look at it, this is where they crossed the river early on June the 12th, 1944, to actually move toward Montmartin and actually secure the bridges that we just mentioned earlier. And E Company landed here, but C Company landed more south. But I'm going to let Joe now maybe talk more about, you know, the crossing and what, you know, what the Americans faced when they crossed the river. That was just to introduce the area.
All right, thank you, Flo. That was a great introduction. The unit that we'll talk about today, the 175th Infantry, had so far in the Normandy campaign a relatively lucky war. As Flo mentioned, they missed out on the D-Day landing and they came in on June 7th. And up until this date, had pretty much suffered very, very few casualties in the liberation of Isigny and then the joining up with the 101st Airborne. Ironically, their first combat experience was a very, very severe episode of friendly fire when east of Isigny they were attacked by friendly RAF Typhoon fighter bombers on the N13 road and did suffer many deaths in that attack. So anyway, let's get on to the objective of the mission on June 12th and then subsequently June 13th. So as Paul mentioned, you can see on that original map that he showed the tenuous connection between Utah Beach, the Utah Beachhead and the Omaha Beachhead. Yeah, he's using his cursor to point it out. You know, the German way of war was to counterattack any Allied amphibious landing as they had done in Sicily, as they had done in Salerno, as they had done at Anzio, and we expected them to do it here. And that point that Paul just pointed out was the obvious direct location where they would attempt to cut the beachhead. So in essence, the 175th Infantry, very, very unexpectedly, due to intelligence that the Germans were moving in fairly substantial forces to cut the beachheads, and you know, in a matter of 4-hour or 6-hour notice, the 175th got the mission to send a force west of the Vire River to block the German approach to Carentan and thereby block their ability to separate the two American beachheads. As we'll learn, it was a snafu from the word go. The men and the leaders did not have enough time to plan the mission. They didn't have enough force, and they had no intelligence of what to expect on the other side of the river. We're on the side now looking where one company of the 175th Infantry landed. So early on June 12th, 1944, E Company of the 175th, led by a Captain Charles Gray, came to the other side, the east side of the Vire. I wonder if we could pan to that other side. And they were met by 8 rubber assault boats, which could fit 10 people apiece. So, and the company had about 160, 180 men with them. So it took 2 round trips, or maybe a little more than 2 round trips, for the engineers and the rubber boats to ferry company E over exactly at this point. You know what? I've been at this point many times, and, you know, on camera, the river looks wider than it does in person. You know, when you're really standing there, it doesn't really look that wide. It has been said, oh, we lost a document there. It has been said that, you know, they crossed in broad daylight. The object originally was to cross in darkness, but because of confusion in the and the speed with which they had to get everything together, by the time they got to the point that Flo is at right now, it was already daylight. A lot of, how should I say, concern that the Germans, with wide open fields of fire that you'll soon see from Flo's camera, could really decimate the company as they started moving west to the main highway to cut the roads and move to the 2 bridges that were supposed to be the objective of the whole mission. But, you know, you can get a kind of sense that actually in the riverbed here, the men were totally safe, because the Vire is lined by dikes, earthen dikes on each side. So they kind of were in a defilade or depression, as you can see right there. They didn't really start to become exposed to enemy fire until right where Flo is right now. And there we have some nice cows. You can kind of see, you know, this is very low-lying area. You can see great examples of Norman dikes right there. There's one that we're following right now. But you can see, with very little knowledge of what the enemy had on the west bank of the river, moving across these open fields, this is not hedgerow country, as you can clearly see. It soon would turn into hedgerow country, but very, very vulnerable point right here, because Germans in that far tree line could make things very, very uncomfortable for the company moving ahead. So we're right now at a point where the company, you know, dispersed as the field manuals prescribed. About 180 men moving west for about a mile, trying to reach the main road. I forget the number of that road, Paul. What is the number of the main road to Carentan?
175, is it?
Yeah, 175 or 173. I don't remember. But they were heading to that road, and it's about a mile away, and in essence, completely in the dark in terms of what to expect. You know, it was not a mission that was planned well, and I guess the blame there really has to go to the senior command that ordered it to happen with such speed. General Gerhardt, the commander of the 29th Division, didn't think that a major force was needed, but the colonel in command of the 175th, Colonel Paul Woodadge, said a major force was needed. Who was going to win that battle? Obviously, General Gerhardt, and he sent only 2 companies, whereas Paul Woodadge, the colonel, had insisted that a whole battalion of 4 or 5 companies would be needed for the job. And the price would be paid, as we will see. We can start moving if you want, Flo.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I lost the sound for a little bit because actually it started to rain, and I think my wireless audio headphone just broke, so I just took another headphone, and I'm sorry for the little bit of
no, we're good
movement.
And I just want to jump in here and say, for those watching who are going to watch these series, and we're going to bring you more of these live streams here on World War II TV, that try and get a sense of the changing terrain of Normandy. It often gets defined by just the bocage, where you've got the wheat fields and cornfields up near Caen. Here you've got these open marshlands with Joe, as Joe said, the dikes, more reminiscent really of the fighting in Holland in September than it was Normandy. And this part of the campaign, June the 12th, we've only been here a few days. You can see amongst the Allied commanders, they're kind of struggling to cope with the changing terrain. They've been training for beach landings, and they're not quite sure what they're going to expect over the next few days. And it changes from mile to mile, different types of terrain. So I'm going to hand back to Joe and Flo. And notice, by the way, Flo is doing his trip tonight in a World War II Jeep. He's managed to rope in a friend of his called Damien, who has kindly lent us his Jeep. And it just means that traveling down these little dike roads is a little bit easier, especially after the rain we've had, than in a car or a minibus. So thank you to Damien for giving us that. And we're going to head off now to our next stop, and I'll hand over to Joe again. I may mute Flo's microphone while we're driving. We'll see how it is. If it's not too bad, we'll carry on talking. It's going to be nice to have the atmosphere of the Jeep. But I'll let Joe carry on the story. We're heading off now. I'll just bring up the map again of where we're going, just to try and have an idea of where we are. So there's Flo's map, and you can see we were up here near position 1, not right near the river. We're now heading off towards well, I'm going to say a town, but it's not. It's a series of strung out villages, really. Montmartin-en-Graignes, all these little names here, a little hamlets, sometimes just 2 or 3 houses. And this isn't an area that tourists go to very often. I don't think people who live here go here very often. It's kind of a backwater, really. So I'll hand over to Joe to carry on the story as Flo's driving.
Okay, a little background on the 175th Infantry Regiment. It was one of 3 regiments comprising the 29th Division. It was raised from the city of Baltimore, which is my native town. It's the 6th or 7th oldest regiment in the U.S. Army. As I said, as of this day, it was completely fresh and had not suffered any casualties on D-Day. It was a superbly trained regiment. It had been in training for 3.5 years, pretty continuously. However, there's no doubt that it had a leadership problem. Its Colonel Philip Wood, had been relieved, so they say, personally, by General Bradley immediately before D-Day, according to rumor, when something went wrong in a training exercise. Colonel Wood lost his temper and started firing a pistol into the sand, and this was witnessed by General Bradley, and he relieved him on the spot. The executive officer was named Alec George, and I have a document just a week or 2 before D-Day that by Bradley that says Colonel George will not be permitted to command the 175th Infantry on D-Day. That says something right there. That's a unique thing among D-Day historiography. So they pulled a regular Army colonel named Paul Good, who we will mention many times today, to command the regiment. And part of the problem is, by the time he took over the regiment, the men were already about to enter the marshaling areas, if not already embarked on their landing ships. So he did not know anyone well. The men did not know him. And he plays a major role in this story. As I said, he insisted that a battalion of 800 men would be needed for the job. General Gerhardt said 2 companies or about 350, 360 men could do the job. It ended up being woefully inadequate. So because it was such a hazy mission, one of the most important people in the 29th Division, the second in command, named General Norman Coda, who you heard me talk a lot about on D-Day, he personally accompanied Company E. So the road we're on right now, there's Coda right there. He was over 50 years old. He wasn't really a person who should have been accompanying rifle squads to engage the enemy directly, but hopefully soon we will see that he did exactly that. And it was very good that he was present. Very good. In the grand scheme of things, he basically saved the 2 companies that we will talk about today from being annihilated. In fact, it is said that when he returned to the other side of the river, a staff officer said, "General, what did you learn on this mission?" And he said, "I learned I'm a hell of a patrol leader," he said. So we're proceeding now out of the Vire Valley, and you can start to see it's resembling a bit more, although by no means intense, the Norman Bocage. And I think very soon we're coming to the little tiny road called the D444. I'm not sure if Paul can get back to that map, the Google Earth map. But the D444 444, which was not paved in those days and is paved now. It's the road that runs smack through the circled number 2 going north-south.
This one here, yeah.
Yeah, that one right there that Paul is indicating with his cursor. This is going to be the introduction to combat for Company E, and believe me, it's not going to be a good one. So the mission, at the risk of repeating myself, is to proceed west to the main road, which is not the 444, it's the 174, which was shown on that green map, and then move south and seize the 2 bridges over the Vire and Tote Canal, which in turn would block the entry of German reinforcements to cut the 2 beachheads. So it was a very, very significant mission. It just was well, you know, this is a direct quote from General Coda. When the day was over, he said this mission was ill-conceived, ill-planned, and ill-executed. So where are we now, Flo?
Just unmuting Flo's microphone, so because it was loud in the Jeep.
All right. So Joe and Paul, we are actually where Norman Coda and his company were ambushed on June the 12th, 1944. And for a lot of people, they thought that maybe that would be the end for Norman Coda because, you know, a lot of men started to, how do you say in English, retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, you know, in Joseph Balkoski's book, he talks about it that he realized that soon after they arrived in the spot, you know, and the Germans started to fire at them, he started to feel a little bit alone. I don't know if you agree, Joseph, but it was a tricky situation, and I think it was not expecting that so many men would be. I mean, that was a chaos. That was just chaos, and Norman Coda could have been captured right there on the spot. So, I mean, if you want, I can go a little bit further. But which is interesting is that, you know, as you said, Paul and Joe, is that the area really changed, and that was not paved, and it was a sinking dirt road. And, you know, you can imagine that they were probably, the edge roads were probably thicker, and, you know, that was a little bit different. But if you want to go on, Joe, I'm just going to film, and I can move on.
Just often these roads, when they were paved perhaps 30 years ago, to widen the road as well, they'd pull in earth from either side on the banks to just widen the road to make it better for modern traffic. And so probably if Flo was walking this same spot 70 years ago, it would be dirt, but it would probably be 2 or 3 foot lower than it is now, and the earth higher either side. So although you're getting the idea of this tunnel shape you often get in these Norman lanes, it's not anything like as pronounced as it would have been 76 years ago. But again, we're bringing you this live from the exact locations. General Coda, a very famous figure, of course, Norman, and later in the Hurtgen Forest when he was in the 28th Division. And this is where his war could have come to a rather abrupt halt if things had gone differently. And by the way, we haven't mentioned the Germans very much in terms of unit. Over to the west, you have the 17th SS Division coming, driving north. And we've known they've been coming for a few days. They've had various bumps into the American Airborne, and they're driving up north trying to take Harrington. You've got the 275th in the area south of Montmartin-en-Graignes. So there are 2 German divisions, or elements of them in this area here. And this rather tenuous link between the 7th Corps and the 5th Corps is the area we're talking about right now. So Flo, I don't know whether you want to carry on, or Joe, I'll hand over to you. What expertise, both of you?
Well, Flo, can you stop for 1 second and turn the camera around to show the route that the Company E was coming up? So yeah, this is and in the distance, you can see the farmhouse of Lenauderie, which
is that way? Is that way?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not up to the main road yet. Okay. So
no, I'm walking. I don't know why I decided to walk a little bit.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so then Oderie is up ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So anyway, this is perfect because Company E was strung out 160, 180 men in a long column. It probably took up, 600, 700 yards. You know, field manuals prescribed, you know, you keep a major space between troops in a column when you know that the enemy can be encountered soon, or if artillery fire is encountered soon. So nothing had happened so far. There had been scattered fire when they had moved across that floodplain of the Vire that we just had seen. They got into the column on this road and were strewn out for several hundred yards, as I said, looking in that direction. The point of the column, if you can go the other way now, you are looking south. I mean, you're looking south now, right?
Now I'm looking south.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I'm looking toward Montmartin is right there. You know, if we go up. Yeah.
So the Normandy is immediately to your left, isn't it?
So we are actually entering, like, because you know there's some new buildings, but like here, there was that farm that's on the circle number 2, just a little bit north. And, yeah. So, but it changed, you know, quite a little bit. But there's some farms right there as well.
Right.
You see, and if we keep straight, you can see afterward the corner that we can see at Lenauderie on the where you see it's written. It's just up. It's going down, and afterward up.
So Lenauderie is really just a farm complex. It's not really a village, and that is where everything starts to get very frantic. I actually knocked on the farm door there 20 years ago because of some things that I knew that happened in the fields adjacent to the farmhouse. And the lady, when I, in my rather poor French, explained what I was looking for, she shut the door in my face, so wasn't interested.
I'm not surprised. The French are not always, like, you know, very friendly. Except if you bring some wine. If you bring some wine, it's another story, or cider. But you know.
Well, the story I mentioned, Flo, was actually General Coda's aide-de-camp, Captain Jack Shea, actually buried some items in the field immediately adjacent to Lenauderie Farm.
Okay.
And I wondered whether she ever found anything in the fields. He was afraid he was going to be captured, and he buried things in that field. And I got the idea over to her, but she was not interested. So
yeah. So I think, Joe, you know, because as I said to Paul this morning, it's really because of the confinement that I had more time to come in the area, and because you know I've met George Lipovsky back in 2015. Was a part of H Company, and Steve Mellicombe as well in 2015. But it's really hard when you're working, you know, to take time sometimes to just come around and ask questions to the local people. But it's probably, you know, if you're going up afterward, it's the corner. So I think we're actually in the spot, you know. But, you know, do you want me to go further north?
Well, what are those buildings up ahead, Flo? I don't remember. Not those, in the other direction.
Yep.
I don't remember those. Are those new?
So there's some new houses, but you were here when, like 20 years ago?
I wasn't in this site for more than 15 years.
Yeah, there's some new houses in the area for sure. Like there are new complex actually on the other side where we were already earlier. So it's probably have changed a little bit, you know.
I just want to add here for those watching this that Joe, you can tell the fact that Joe is able to navigate his way around this area using a rather jerky internet image coming in via Zoom, somewhere he hasn't been 15 years and can still tell us all about these stories here. This is exactly what we're trying to do on these broadcasts, is bring you the very best people to get the very best information about these locations. And Joe's work, which was, he won't mind me saying, was sort of 15, 20 years ago. And now Flo has been doing more work to investigate it now. And we're bringing you the results of these two historians right now, live to you, about this incredible push south by the 175th.
Yeah.
And that story about the Jack Shea burying things in the garden. I mean, I'm excited watching this and I'm hosting it. So this is fantastic stuff.
So you see there probably some new houses there, but I'm going up south a little bit more because I don't know how long we have, but if I keep going, I keep walking because we're actually in Lenauderie right now, and we're actually a little bit more north. I
think we're still not at the site of the ambush. So I would like to show people the actual hedgerow that Company E reached when the ambush happened, because literally Germans on one side of the hedgerow reached over their MP40 submachine guns and blindly fired over the top of the hedgerow into the road.
Okay.
And Jack Haye actually crawled through a culvert or a tunnel under the earthen embankment of the hedgerow to try to engage those Germans. We found that culvert in 1999. I don't know if it's still there. But he got in that field and he saw Germans literally on the opposite side of the hedgerow as the point element of Company E. And you're getting a sense of it, although this is not the exact spot. The men of Company E fell into the ditches on either side of the road and they lay prone. And needless to say, this was the first time they had ever been near an enemy. And according to Shea, their non-commissioned officers had to say, you know, return the fire, shoot back at the bastards. And it was a very awkward situation because there were some very brave Germans on the other side of the hedgerow tossing grenades over the hedgerow. There was machine gun fire coming straight down the road from the direction of Montmartin.
So I think this is more south, actually, because right now, if you put back the map, Paul.
Your map?
Yeah. We are actually above the circle 2, you know, Lenodry, where you see when it's starting to make a corner.
Right, we're here now, are we? Yeah. I
think we're right there.
Yeah, the ambush was further south. The ambush was actually within the red circle. Right? Paul, if you can move the cursor within the 2, right there is where the ambush happened.
So perhaps, do you want to take the Jeep, Flo?
Yeah, the Jeep is coming. So this is actually where we were just when we started, when I stopped. But the farm that you were talking about, I think was the first, later on the right, but they actually changed a little bit and repaired, the farm. So it looks a little bit different, but let me go back south and maybe it's going to be up.
And I wonder if that culvert is going to still be there, where Jack Shea went through. I mean, if we could find that would be absolutely amazing.
Paul, I had to find it with a stick. It was covered with shrubbery, but I stuck the stick through. It might be, maybe they cleared it. We'll see.
Maybe they've done a lot of work for drainage over the last 10 years or so. But
so you see now, I'm going south right now toward the point number 2. So as you can see, it's gonna be a small valley here, going down, and we're gonna go up.
Yeah, Shea remarks that as the company went down this road, it had a very slight bend in it, and this is the bend.
Yeah, and so all the houses, Joe, on the right are probably new. When you came here, they were. I'm not sure 100%, but look, they're.
Yeah,
I think
new. Yeah,
all of those are new.
I think that's the farm that you were talking about. It's a little bit north of the circle. If you look at the map, hold on, I'm gonna stop up. If you look at the map, number 2, we are actually the first building north of the field where we were talking about the ambushed, and this part is probably new as the fence. I don't know if it's something that you recognize, Joe, but we're just
no. That fence was not there. That's the house that I knocked on the door.
That's the house?
I believe so. Yes. So if you start looking south again, we should be very near the hedgerow.
Okay, I'm gonna go south. But you can see it's well maintained. It probably doesn't look like anything like, oh, look, it's American fence from 1944.
Oh, nice.
You see that? Yeah, okay. So that's the field that I encircled number 2.
Yeah.
I hope that's the right one.
So remember, the members of Company E are lying in that ditch, flat on their stomachs. Germans are on the other side firing over the hedge. A machine gun is coming straight down the road. It's said that somebody lying in that ditch said, "Christ, I never knew my dog tags were so thick." He was trying to get as flat as he possibly could. Yeah, this is the field. Somewhere in this field, Jack Haye buried some sensitive items from maps and unit documents.
So Joe, you should come in France, and we're gonna metal detect.
Well, I don't think the lady wanted me to go in the field, to tell the truth.
I didn't ask, but it's just briefly. I'm not damaging anything, but that's the edge road that you were talking about then.
Yeah, Germans were on this side. Now, many of them, Haye remarks that he got into this side of the hedgerow and he started shooting at them from this side of the hedgerow, and they took off and/or were wounded.
Mm-hmm.
But, what happened is, that, it really was an ambush. The company, which was strewn out for a long distance behind this point, and the point here took a bunch of casualties. The company scattered. It was their first action. It wasn't led well. Coda was actually in a side road. Maybe when we get back on the main road, I could show you where Coda was. He actually... Captain Haye found him. If you turn to your right now or north, turn the other way, Flo. If there's right?
South, yep.
Well, actually, Coda was behind you where he is now. And Jack Haye found Coda, and according to Haye, Coda said, "Christ, what happened? All of a sudden, I'm surrounded by a rifle company, and it's Custer's last stand, and I'm all alone." So, the Germans effectively scattered this entire company with this very effective ambush exactly in this location. If you could walk further, maybe you could rise to the top of that slight ridge, and maybe we can get a view of...
The German side?
Yeah, I'd like to get a view at least of the Montmartin church steeple, because that was kind of a landmark.
All right. And, Joe... Again, Joe, there are a lot of in Poland. There are a lot of new houses. I don't know when they were built, but all those, here, are probably very new, and it's a possibility that we won't be able to see. Yes, we see it briefly. It's hard, but you see there are 3 houses, and we see the church is just on the top of the 3rd one.
Yeah,
I'll just share a photo. Hang on, I've got a photo of. There's Montmartin Church Tower in June 1944.
And this same church is right there.
We can just see it.
Yeah,
just there in the photo, in the image.
Those houses were not there the last time I was there. You could clearly see the church from this position.
Yeah.
And that was a landmark because this is relatively flat countryside, and that Montmartin ultimately was the objective of the company because that was where they were going to unite the company C. I don't mean to get too complicated. We're only talking right now about one of the 2 companies, and that is E.
So, Joe, that's the other side of the road?
Yeah, so we're looking from the German perspective right now. We're looking north. And roughly where those houses are on the opposite side of the field is roughly where General Coda was when the company was scattered. And as we go back to stop number 3, and I guess we can start heading there, Flo.
Yeah. All right.
I would like as you're heading north on the road to look left or west when you start going north, and
So I'm going to actually use the road that we just took to go to the Chateau de Bernia,
Okay.
Which means I'm going to actually go like east, and afterward I'm going to take north.
Okay, that's fine.
If it's all right. I think there's only one road to go there, but you're talking the chateau where the castle where, as you said, where they rested, where some elements of C and E company regrouped and rested a little bit before they tried to go southeast of Montmartin. Because they were still trying to take the bridge, but from another direction, if I'm correct.
So right now, if you look to your left or north, this hedgerow right here is the main German position for defending Montmartin. There were Germans behind this hedgerow engaging Company E in the field to our left, and you can see Lenauderie Farm on the far side of the field. And momentarily, we will be seeing Montmartin, which obviously the Germans were used. There's a good view. That's what I remember very well.
Yeah, we can see the church. And I'm going to go to the castle. Is that all right?
Yes.
Yeah, keep
All
going,
right,
Flo. This is great stuff. We love it.
Left. So we're going to turn left. Up and down, if I remember correctly.
So we're now heading north again.
Exactly.
And we're heading to this very, very isolated chateau called Chateau de Bernia, which isn't particularly significant other than the fact that it was the point where the two companies that we're talking about today, Company C and Company E, reassembled after both had been badly, badly scattered and disorganized by the German ambush in the environs of Montmartin. So the chateau is where they gathered. You know, in 1944, it was a very foreboding place. It sat in the middle of a very low-lying land. I think it's actually a hotel. It's a B&B now. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, probably.
Exactly. That's a B&B, and it's a beautiful castle, and it could have been destroyed during the war, but fortunately it was not. I don't know. I don't know if you can hear me because like the signal might be very bad.
Oh, well, you're loud and clear, Flo. It's fantastic.
Yeah, the light is not. I don't know if you see. Can you see?
A little bit. It could be a little. If we could get a little closer, is that possible?
So let's try. You know what? And if they yell at me, at least I can pretend I'm not French and I don't understand.
Yeah,
so
it's because the sun is behind it. It's not, but this is great.
Yeah, it's not the best. I know.
This building was christened the Castle by the Company E members. They passed by it. They thought the Germans would use it as a strong point. They sent a patrol in to check out the building, and there was nobody in it except evidently for the owners. So the Germans did not use this site as a resistance nest. But in the fields around this building, the two companies assembled. Coda sat around and radioed General Gerhardt and said, "We were foiled in our first attempt. What should we do next?" This is a good view. You can see how ancient it is.
Yeah. For those watching, I hope you appreciate the efforts we're going to here. This is live reporting from the battlefield, 76 years on. This is General Coda. This is one of the most legendary figures of June the 6th in an action that, I mean, look at that view there. And the skies are amazing today, Flo. You can see it's been bad weather, and I think you may get some rain later on, but
you can see it's blue and gray, you know.
Yeah, blue and gray, very appropriate.
Blue and gray.
But which is interesting as you see the exposed area, you know, because they were coming from a little bit like east, you know, up. This is where we were earlier. Just behind you can see the entire exposed fields here going up to Montmartin.
Hey Flo, could you pan the camera to the east and try to see the high ground on the east side of the Vire River?
So right now I'm facing east. But so the Vire River is just behind here, and afterwards going up a little bit, but it's hard on my phone to see.
Yeah.
But if you look in front of me, the telephone pole right there, and just behind, you can see that it's a little bit more hilly. Yeah.
Yes, because the next part of our story is going to involve a new, fresh company, Company G, which, as this event was happening on June 12th, was garrisoning that high ground that you just pointed out, and that company headquarters was in the village of Louis-la-Forêt, which you might be able to see the church steeple of that. That village actually is on high ground.
Right, here's the map again. So there's Montmartin-en-Graignes, and the ridge, the Vire River runs down here, and the high ground, if you're following my mouse, is over here. Neuilly-la-Forêt is just south of Isny-sur-Mer. So Flo is over in this area here, looking east, and the G company are over in this area here. I'll stop this and go back to Flo.
Yeah, you can see right there some buildings on the top of the hill, and I think it's a part of it. But yeah, when we're gonna go up a little bit with the Jeep, I'm gonna show you a perfect spot where you can see where G company and the rest of E company was. But I'm just gonna go back to the Jeep and show you.
Okay.
Yeah, we're very fortunate with the weather because this morning was. And Joseph, if I'm correct, the weather that day on June the 12th, it was a very hot day. It was not a rainy day.
It was hot, yes.
Yeah, so it's something to worry about as well, like the water supply. But I'm sure there were a lot of cider and a lot of Calvados in the cave of all those farms.
That's true. Well, you know, hot by Normandy standards is not hot by Baltimore standards. So men here were used to it.
Yeah. So I'm sorry if I'm not showing my face, just because my mic wireless, because of the rain earlier, I think broke. So, I mean, I guess it's more interesting to see the landscape than me.
Yeah, we can bring you in later, Flo. But this is
all right.
Great. Great shots of the hedgerows and the climb up there. You can see we're rising.
Yeah, I'm going to show you very soon. And this is what it is interesting about it, is that when you come here, you can realize that it's very, like Montmartin is on the plateau. I'm going to stop here. We're going to stop here. You can see that Montmartin is very high. I mean, it's a high plateau. Hold on. I think I've got a good spot here. You see?
Yeah, we can see that now. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the best shot, but at least we see the exposed field under here. Up. So do you want me, Joe, to go and Paul to go number 4? Maybe. I don't know if we have a little bit of time. I can go through the town of Montmartin and maybe go.
You carry on with the story. This is all great. I mean, we want to make sure we don't get into a bit where it gets rainy. I mean, if you see clouds coming, perhaps speed up. We're loving it. I'm loving it. I'm hosting it. I think it's great.
Yeah. So I would just like to say something, because I don't know if you hear me well right now.
It's okay.
You know, the veteran that I've met, we can go slow. The veteran that I've met, that's good. George Lipovsky was part of H Company of the 175th, and we talked about it this morning with Joseph, because actually very often we hear about C Company, E Company, and later G Company, but actually H Company sent some men with, you know, the outfit. And my man, the guy that I've met, George Lipovsky, was actually a part of the 81 millimeter mortar team, and he was sent to cross the Vire River with G Company. And he was actually captured at La Haye. This is our next stop. And we talked about it this morning. And Joseph realized that actually, I mean, we realized, he saw in the morning reports that there were a lot of men from H Company that were captured and in La Haye. And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about it, Joseph.
Yeah. Well, I guess, there. First of all, Paul, you want to say where we are? That's Montmartin.
Yep.
And that's just the church steeple that we saw. So I guess let me summarize, because the coda is going to stop being part of the story. The two reassembled companies at the Chateau de Bernia, which we just saw, reassembled that evening. They attacked Montmartin and seized it, where we are right now. Coda radioed back to division headquarters and said, "We failed in our mission to take the bridges. What should we do?" Gerhardt said, "Well, I'm going to reinforce you with another company and let's push on." So the company that was contacted was Company G, and that is the story we will now tell. Coda remained here throughout the morning of the next day, June 13th. But he did not play a role in what was about to happen. And what was about to happen on June 13th, which is tomorrow, and my birthday, by the way.
Oh, happy birthday in advance.
Thank you. I was born exactly 10 years after D-Day. So I'm sorry, 10 years after this event I'm about to talk about. So what unfolded in this little tiny hamlet called La Haye, R-A-Y-E, realistically is one of the worst disasters to occur to the 29th Division in World War II. Virtually an entire company plus was nearly annihilated. Can you point out La Haye on that map? Oh, it might not be on.
Yeah, no, it's there. It's there. It's here.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
there it is. It's just south of Montmartin-en-Graignes, on the edge of the floodplain. The another area between Haye and Saint-Jean-de-Day is all, or was that all inundated at the time?
so there is a bridge there now, and was a bridge there in 1944, but the bridge had been demolished by the Germans. So when Company G was called forward by General Gerhardt to start playing a role in this developing tragedy, he was the company commander, Captain Kearney Slingluff, who I knew very well, was told to make the crossing in the same place that we saw at the beginning of this program. He crossed exactly where we started, but he had the same orders to press a mile or more to the west and to seize the two bridges over the Vire Canal to block the Germans from moving north to sever the Omaha and the Utah beachheads. He had only about 180 men, maybe 200 men. And normally, as I said, his headquarters was right at Vire, which you can see there. Maybe Paul can highlight that.
Yeah.
He actually kept a command post in that village. It would have made sense for him to cross the Vire right there, but actually he moved well north and crossed where that arrow is, and then had the unfortunate circumstance of having to follow the west bank of the Vire River for over a mile due south, exactly as Paul is showing with the cursor right now, to try to get around German resistance that had troubled Coda. So Coda, with the two companies of the previous day, was kind of encircled in Montmartin, and Captain Slingluff's Company G was moving on the west bank of the Vire to try to get around that resistance and moving into that tiny little village called La Haye. So maybe I should go over to Flo now and have him describe where he is.
I think he's still nice what he's got there. And I've muted his microphone for a second. What a view that is there. And I think I'll just show that map again, because I think it quite well shows the positions of the Kampfgruppe over here, the 275th German Infantry Division here. And they are holding this high plateau here. And you can see when Joe was talking about the ambush, coming along down this way, the Americans were under fire from this higher plateau there. I mean, it's not high in terms of Alps, but when you're driving this area here, you'll see these ridges. And I'm loving the fact we're bringing you what I would consider a very important engagement, but it's got lost in the Battle of Normandy amongst all the other things that are happening at the same time. The Flo is now making his way to our last stop, and you can see, oh, there's been a road accident there. This is the inundated area here, these flooded areas that would have been, if not underwater, actually certainly marshy. And there's a road that picks across the Neuilly-les-Forêts. And he'll be at the last spot fairly soon. I'll hand over back to Joe again. And then when Flo's, well, he's not far away now. I think he's a few hundred yards away now, maybe. He's showing us on the aerial photo there. There's a modern Google Earth image, and there's a wartime image there. Thank you, Flo.
Yeah, you could actually on that wartime image see that the bridge had been destroyed over the Vire.
Yeah.
We will soon see the modern bridge. So I was very, very fortunate to know many of the men of these incidents that we're talking about. Several excellent written accounts and memoirs of the June 12th, June 13th period. One of them was written by Captain Slingluff, who's going to play a pivotal role in what we're about to talk about. He was captured and spent the rest of the war in a stalag in Germany and very, very nearly died in captivity. But his account has come under question, as always is the case by veterans' accounts, because of the confusion of the time. He wrote the account in 1946 or 45 even. So things had, the proverbial dust had not settled. I had the good fortune of knowing many men from Company G, and one of the best, a guy named Sergeant Bob Jackson. He provided me with a very, very detailed account of what happened here. And among the tragedies of what happened here is two Jewish soldiers from Company G, Harold Cohen and Abensky. Forgive me, I forget Abensky's first name. They were pulled out by the SS after being captured, and they were executed. So this was the first time that the 29th Division had faced war crimes. Abensky's and Cohen's bodies have never been found. So let me go to Flo, but I believe this is the modern bridge over the Vire.
Yeah, it is.
So
yeah.
Hello. Yeah, hello. I know the GP is a little bit noisy, but what a ride it was.
It's all good, don't worry.
It's absolutely amazing. So I'm right now standing, as you said, on the new bridge that was built, after the war. And this bridge was, as you show on the picture, destroyed, and I'm over the Vire River, and I'm facing north. And again, I believe that, as you said, Joe, that the G Company was coming from the north. They walked during the night between June the 12th and June the 13th. And when they arrived here, actually, they afterward faced a lot of German troops, SS from the 17 SS Division. I'm sorry for the airborne. We talk a lot about the airborne in Normandy, that's why. So that's actually the field, where the battles happen. And you just mentioned, how the company, G Company of the 175th was decimated, wiped out. Let's be honest, not a lot of men managed to cross the river. Tell me if I'm wrong, Joe, but it's about 30 men from G Company that managed to reach.
In fact, Sergeant Jackson, who I just mentioned, was one of the people who escaped. He swam the river. He told me he never had swum a stroke in his life. And he was picked up, and he said, well, I guess somehow I learned by necessity to swim.
Yeah.
As you can see, the river is not as wide here as it was further north.
Yeah, exactly. But still,
this is where Jackson, well, we're ahead of our story, but so if you look north, Flo, as you said, that is the route by which Company G, again, strung out probably over 600 yards in a very long dispersed column, at dawn on June 13th, came onto this road. I forget the number of this road. I think it's, I forget the number of the road. But it's a minor road, and it just connects the Vire to the main north-south N174 heading up north toward Carentan. So when Captain Slingluff arrived here, and a lot of what is known, a lot of what we know is controversial. Because Slingluff's account does not agree in any way with Jackson's account. But anyway, roughly exactly where Flo is right now, Slingluff took half his company and put it on the north side of the road. If you turn around the other way, Flo,
I was just trying to take a map because I don't know, Joe, because this road right here, you see, this tiny road, it's not, it's a very tiny road. I don't think this one is actually going toward Carentan. This one is actually going toward fields.
Yeah, that's not a main road. No.
No.
I meant the main east-west road on the bridge.
I see. I see. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
So that because actually, that was the road we were on already. So do you want me to go a little bit up?
Yeah, I'd like you to keep going and then start looking to your left and to your right because.
Yeah, I saw in aerial pictures from just after the battle with a lot of huge craters here, and one of the local farmer you see in that corner. So this is from a local farmer that I've met, but he found about 200 bullets. Looks like from a machine gun, German Pro, I don't know, but I was just in the corner there. But it's just one of the elements that I discovered a couple of weeks ago.
This field is exactly where my friend Bob Jackson was wounded. He was wounded on the hedgerow to the right. He marked it on a map for me. I would bet those machine gun cartridges were actually American, because that hedgerow that you're looking at right now was the last-ditch defensive line held by Company G as they were overwhelmed later in the day by the SS troops. The Germans, as the surrender happened, ran down this line, taking the surrenders of all of the 29th Division soldiers right here. if you could pan to the other side of the road, the north side of the road, the other half of the company was moving west on this side of the road, and one of the most distinguished soldiers in the company, Clyde Keene, Keene, took a bullet right in the helmet, roughly where we are right now, and was killed. And that was a very demoralizing event for the company. Again, this was their first action in World War II, and to see Keene, who was one of their most, Keene was killed right about here, as he was advancing toward those farm buildings. Actually, a barn, I believe, in 1944 was right here.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
It was during the war, but this building is not there anymore. And actually, if you look at the pictures from right after the battle, you know, they took some aerial pictures. You can see that they were a massive building just behind that bush, and all the roofs you can see are absolutely all destroyed. All the buildings were, like, you know, pretty damaged because of the battles, and they took down the building that you saw, like you mentioned, in the field.
Yeah, Sergeant Keene was killed as he approached that building that is no longer there. You know, Slingleth had the mission of moving west on this road toward those bridges, but it became quite obvious that he wasn't going to get anywhere. It was a major, major controversy between many members of the company and, shall I say, others. There was a lot of difficulty with Captain Slingleth. He said in his memoirs that they actually almost made it to the bridges that they were assigned to capture, but they never really got anywhere near. So right here is where the other half of the company was setting up strong points in buildings. The company was greatly, greatly outnumbered, but there's an entire German Panzer Grenadier Division was moving north on the main road toward Carentan. And when they realized an American force had crossed the Vire in this sector, they sent out, shall I say, ample forces to deal with it.
And Joseph, I heard, but you know, again, you know what you said is very controversial because there are a lot of stories. You know, it was a little bit of a chaos, so sometimes some stories don't perfectly match. But I heard different stories that, like, some of the men, after, you know, they were surrounded and captured, that some of them were in line here in that place, and the Germans were actually checking their, you know, who they were, papers and stuff. But I'm not 100% sure, but it's one of the stories I heard. But again, that's just something I heard. So
that's an exactly true story, Lo, and I believe this is the exact courtyard where it happened. The Americans were lined up, and the Germans, as was their wont, were looking at their dog tags. And there are eyewitness accounts to this that were mentioned in the deceased personnel files for Avansky and Cohen, the two Jewish soldiers.
Yes.
It said that when they found Avansky's and Cohen's dog tags, and unfortunately the American Army practice was to put your religion on the dog tag. Ironically, you know, they didn't say J for Jewish, it said H for Hebrew. And the Germans knew that that H was a red flag to them. And they took Avansky and Cohen out from this courtyard, and they were never, ever seen again. Their bodies had never been found. They never appeared in a prisoner of war camp. Other than that, nobody knows anything. There were other Jewish soldiers in the company. I can only assume that when this was happening, they were smart enough to, you know, dispose of their dog tags.
Yeah. But yeah, in the document that you sent me, Joe, it's quite interesting. But you know, again, I don't know if it's true. But so when they say their name, you know, they check their dog tags, and one of them was Cohen, and they asked the Germans if he was Jewish, and he said yes, and he was proud of it. And the second soldier, Jewish soldier, that was the same. They didn't say no, I'm not. They were kind of proud of being Jewish, and they didn't say no, I'm not. And I don't know. It's in the document that you sent me, like when they did the research about, the body after the war, when they were trying to find the body, and one witness died, said that they said with, and with pride that yes, they were Jewish, and this is afterward that they were taken away and nobody know what happened to them.
Yeah.
So Flo, can you bring in? We've had a couple of people asking, where are the 327th glider involved in this? Because they're in the same area at the same time, aren't they? Could you bring them in?
So yes, they're a little bit north. Actually, this is where we were already, earlier. And Denis van der Brik, which is unfortunately not available tonight, wrote a book about the Battle of Carentan. And we're very fortunate because there's an entire part of the book who covered the 327 action in the northern part of Montmartin-en-Graignes. And they talked about, in Lénaudry, where we were actually walking when I was walking earlier.
Yep.
This is approximately like where Norman Coda actually met up with some elements of the 327 gliders. I wish I could give you more details, but actually north of the railroad, the 327 already suffered like high casualties. And I know that during their battle in the northern of Montmartin, the 327 lost the 2nd Battalion executive officer, and there are many other captain, which unfortunately I don't know all the names, wish Denis was here with us, but
it's his wife's birthday, Flo. He's got a good excuse.
That's why. But yes, he did an amazing job, and he sent me some stuff, explaining the battles, but they started to suffer like high casualties in the northern part of Montmartin and joined up with, E Company, Norman Coda. And together they were fighting in the area where we were earlier in the northern part of Montmartin-en-Graignes. But the things that after that, tell me, Joe, if I'm wrong, but they kind of dig their foxholes, a little bit like southeast, east of Montmartin-en-Graignes. They dug their foxhole and they stayed there.
Yes,
as you said, Joe, in your book, they were too weak to start an attack, but they were they were ready to defend the area. So the German didn't really launch any massive counterattack, which gave the time to Norman Coda and other guys to retreat. But where we are right now, there no one except element of G Company and H Company that actually were absolutely surrendered. There are no men from the 327 glider that fought here, if I'm correct, Joseph, but we're just correct in an area where the 175th.
Yeah, we're too far south for the glider men to be involved. And, part of that, the Company G was put way, way out on a limb with this mission. It was one of the most unfortunate decisions in 29th Division history, and so much so that the Colonel Good, who I mentioned to you, Colonel Good, who had only recently taken command and hardly knew anyone, he was so concerned about putting the company out on a limb like this. He was very much against it, and Gerhardt nevertheless ordered the mission. He accompanied Captain Slingluff, and he went up to him the night before and he said, "I will not go to be in command. I would not order you to do anything that I wouldn't do. So I'm just going to accompany you for the buggy ride," he said. So Colonel Good was present. I think we're back near the bridge. This is the field where the final stand was made of the company. My good friend Bob Jackson was wounded here, and he got away. He ran across the river to our left and swam across the river. So Slingluff remarks in his memoirs that Colonel Good looked at him, probably lying down behind that actual hedgerow, although we'll never be sure. And Colonel Good said, "Captain, your men have done enough and they're suffering. I'm going to surrender you now." And Bob Jackson, who was present, denied that vehemently. He said Colonel Good did nothing. He was just an observer. He said he saw Captain Slingluff running up the road to the west, the other direction.
East. Sorry, west.
That way. And he said he saw Captain Slingluff running up the road with a white handkerchief announcing surrender. And then the Germans moved in. As I said, they came behind that hedgerow. One of my good friends, no longer living, Milton Villarreal, he was a Hispanic soldier. He said that the Germans came by and they had not yet organized the prisoners yet, but he stuck his Mauser rifle in Villarreal's ear. And he said, "So you've surrendered, you Chicago gangster." And then just walked on. You know, the Germans like to refer to Americans as gangsters because they had been told that American society was, very, very low class and filled with gangsters and uncouth people. And the Germans had been led to believe that everyone they captured was essentially a criminal or a gangster. So, in essence, you know, this is the site of one of the great 29th Division disasters of World War II. Most of the company never made it back. It accomplished nothing. It would have been far better had the mission never been ordered because they never could have accomplished anything against a full division that was strung out along the Parenton Road. A great, great failure of intelligence and a great, great failure of senior leadership. And I don't know who to blame for that. It could well be that General Gerhardt had orders from Bradley himself to cut those two bridges. And it's just that nowhere near enough had been applied to do the job, and the results were predictable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's I don't know what our time is like, Paul. Are we over our time?
Yeah. How's your battery flow? Are you all right?
You know, I bought a Samsung, like a external charger battery just for the occasion.
I mean, I think my comments, to put this in context, is this is very much in the time where the Allied learning curve is very steep. These are units that have spent a lot of time training for the amphibious landing, and they're still finding their feet. The leaders are finding their feet, and so are the men. And you see in these first 2 weeks after D-Day, there are quite a few of these incidents. It's happened to the Canadians and the British as well, where it's not naivety, it's not bad luck. It's just everyone's kind of getting used to the rules of the game, really. And you can see from that road flows on now, it was a raised embankment with floods either side. And when you come into problems in that kind of area, the ambush potential is horrific. And
yeah, but can I would like just to add something, because after studying the books, listening to just a few men that were here in 1944 and coming here on the terrain, I just realized that it was a very, very risky mission. And crossing the Vire River with just two companies with those two objectives, like the bridges, I'm honestly don't know how they could do the job. It was very risky and no possibility to actually really retreat easily. And if I'm correct, like here at La Haye, they didn't even have artillery support.
Which the Germans definitely did. That's the thing. The 17th SS who are in this, they have artillery support. They have heavy barreled mortars.
Yeah,
they have a whole wealth of weaponry they can bring down on these guys.
And if you look north of Montmartin with the 327 glider, they had the support of artillery, engineers, medics, and here we have just a group of men with their rifle and of course a few machine gun mortar, but they're completely isolated and they have absolutely no way to retreat except crossing the river, and they have no support from anyone else. I'm not saying that it's the fault of someone, but I'm just saying that it was a very risky mission, and a lot of men paid the ultimate price. And we thought, tell me if I'm wrong, Joe, but that Good was actually killed. We didn't know he was actually captured because there are a group of men that found his helmet with like a shrapnel or a bullet hole, in the helmet.
That's true. That's a true story. They found Colonel Good's helmet with a bullet hole in it, and they assumed he was dead. It wasn't for 2 months that they found out he was in an off-flag prison camp somewhere in Poland. And incidentally, for those listeners who know anything about the famous Hammelburg raid in March 1945, one of Patton's worst moments in World War II, where he tried to rescue prisoners, including his son-in-law in a German prisoner of war camp as the war was ending. Paul Good was the senior commander in the prison camp that Patton tried to liberate in March 45. He was quite a character. It's said that by the Geneva Convention, he demanded of his captors that he was allowed to have bagpipes, and he played bagpipes in the Aflac prisoner of war camp during the war, and ultimately made it home, as did Slinglove. Slinglove made it home. All of them had lost 60, 80 pounds. They were mere skeletons. And, they had marched, hundreds of miles across Germany as the Russians were moving in from the east under terrible, terrible conditions. So, of course, the enlisted men from the company were not kept in the same prison camps as the officers. But
we have a question coming, Joe. Someone is asked. Tim Sampson is asking, why did Gerhardt always order attacks but without proper artillery support?
That's a great question. He almost was relieved of command for that very reason. In November and early December of 1944, on the German border, his division was suffering more casualties than neighboring divisions, and his corps commander said, "Why are you not using your artillery to your advantage?" And he tried to relieve him there on the spot. His career was only saved by Eisenhower. And in a very similar event in Normandy that happened, I believe, on the 16th of June, Colonel Bingham, or Major Bingham at the time, of the 116th Infantry, was told to attack across the L River near Saint-Clair-sur-Elle, and he was told to do it without artillery being ready, and he complained about it. And Gerhardt said, "Why do you need artillery? You have hundreds of brave riflemen." And Major Bingham never forgave him for that statement for the rest of his life. So, it was what you said is true, Paul. It was a learning curve right now, and the worst learning curve of all was the senior leaders.
Yeah.
They made major moves that were very ill-advised. I guess your listeners are going to learn that tomorrow with the Villers Bocage. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Well, this has been really amazing, and I'm so pleased the weather has been holding. I just want to add, when Flo was talking about Cohen and Evansky, the two Jewish guys who went missing, there have been several attempts over the last few years to recover their bodies. In fact, I was part of an operation about 10 years ago now with an old American historian and friend of mine, Harlan Glenn, and they brought a team over from the USA. It was about 8 people, archaeologists. They had a cadaver dog they brought over, and we spent about 4 or 5 days combing these fields around here with the cadaver dogs. They were doing geophysics, and there was never any sign of these 2 people. And I think they've done another search since my one. They acquired some new information. And this is a team, I forget the name of the foundation. They were particularly involved in finding missing Marines out in the Pacific. And this was their first foray into ETO. And this was about 10 years ago now. And we never found these. So anyone watching, there have been attempts to try and find some of these missing people. And Marty Morgan, who is an expert on the Graignes battle of the 507th and 501st, he's trying to connect some of these stories, because the same perpetrators of crimes here may have been the same people responsible for the murders in Graignes, over where the airborne were caught and killed. But there's still work to be done to try and assign, if you like, these incidents to particular individuals. And people are going back through the trial records of the war crimes. But someone else asked, are these incidents common of prisoners being killed? Well, one of the facts is I think between June the 7th and June the 20th, 1 in 5 Canadian soldiers was killed as a prisoner of war by the SS. So it is, unfortunately, it's not very common, but it's happening enough to be something to talk about. It's happening more to the Canadians and the British than it is the Americans. And these incidents, luckily, are rarer in the American sector, but it is something that was happening. It's the SS, the way they fought wars in this sort of samurai way, like the Japanese. They had this racial prejudice, of course, and yeah. So unfortunately, some people were victims of being murdered. So what are we looking at now, Flo?
So we're just looking at beautiful cows and donkey.
Yeah.
No, it's just let me tell you one thing, because You know, today we're talking about battles. We're talking about men who have been killed. Some were still missing. Men who have been captured, crossing the river, trying to escape. You know, those fierce battle. And today, it's just so peaceful, and you can smell the freedom. I mean, as sometimes people say here, you know, we're free and we're enjoying a peaceful life and simple life. You know, farming lands, and it's just because of those men. And you know, as French and Joseph, you know, you American. My wife is American. Paul, you know, you're from the UK, and all those nations from, you know, another country, they came here to liberate my country and to make Normandy what it is today. I'm just very thankful for all those men for what they did a long time ago. I was just thinking about that, you know, because today it's so.
That's very, very poignant words, and I love the fact that this is an international show. There's you're French, I'm British, Joe's American, and we're all coming together to bring this story. And I think it's understanding how privileged this is to be here 76 years on. This live footage you're getting back. We were a bit worried about internet coverage down there. It's amazing, and you can see how exposed the area is. And I'm sure some people who've been to Normandy have driven past these locations, because the 174 south from Carenton, you've probably been on that road, but not taken this little road up, ends up at Neuilly-les-Forêts by Ariel and back into Isny. But this was a area of some very hectic, very horrible fighting in this week 76 years ago. So
yeah,
I don't know whether Joe's got anything else to say about this. I mean, did this have an effect on the 175th beyond this, Joe? Was there a change in tactics? Was there a change in leadership? What happened in the next few days?
Yes, the executive officer, Colonel George, took over, who 3 days later lost his eye on Hill 108, so he didn't last. But it's true. I mean, and this is true of all Allied units in Normandy. You know, the cream rises to the top when the pressure is on.
Yeah.
And ultimately, the 175th found its superb commander, ironically, in an old National Guard soldier named William Purnell, who led the regiment pretty much superbly for the rest of the war. But yes, I mean, it's a learning curve, and a terrible learning curve, because the price that was paid, and you know, not only in this incident, but the next couple of weeks was very, very bad. I mean, I guess the only bright side is the 29th Division had the good fortune of never encountering the SS again after this incident until very, very late in the war. They tended to engage German paratroopers and normal German army troops who did behave, you know, not perfectly, but, you know, reasonably close to the Geneva Convention.
So, sorry, Joe, to interrupt you. Just if we go back to where flow started near the river, and we've talked about E Company and G Company, then H Company came in a little bit. What? Not that we're you know dwelling on it, but what losses in total did these companies suffer here? What was the casualty rates in killed, wounded, and missing?
For the two initial companies that we talked about in the beginning, Company C and Company E, it was probably in the range of 50 to 70 men killed and wounded and captured, out of a strength of, well, full company strength of over 200.
Yeah.
But probably 180 men went over. So it was a very significant loss.
Yeah.
Much, much more significant on the site where we are right now at La Haye. Company G probably brought over 190, 200 men. And as Flo mentioned, the very small contingent of the heavy weapons from Company A, 18 members of the heavy weapons company alone were captured here. And probably about 80 to 100 Company G members were captured here. The company pretty much ceased to exist after this incident and had to be rebuilt. So, you know, it was not annihilation by any means, but it was, you know, things didn't get much worse than what happened here.
No. Well, someone's saying that's a beautiful shot of Normandy there, and that is a lovely shot to
and if you're looking south, you see those big clouds, you know, not those, but just here. It's just Saint-Lô is right there around the corner, you know, and we're gonna need like a month and a half to liberate that town, Saint-Lô.
Well, even a month later, we're not more than 3 or 4 miles away from where we are now, are we?
Oh yes, that was starting position. Like, yeah, I would say that, you know, as we, this afternoon, I was, au Pont de la Pierre, as we said, a new monument there, honoring the member of the 1st Battalion 115 that were killed there. And I would say that, the progress was kind of fast the first few days after D-Day, but like mid-June, it's a really turning point. And that's why, Paul, you were saying, what we're going to talk about, because everybody is stuck. And those for a few weeks, like when you talk about Hill 192, it's insane. The 2nd Infantry Division, they passed Rivière on June the 10th, up, they went near, at the bottom of Hill 192 approximately, and they were stuck there for 3 weeks. So 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So
well, my uncle in the Royal Ulster Rifles, he entered Combon Plain north of Caen on June the 7th and 8th, and he left it again a month later when they pushed into Caen. So he was essentially stuck in the same foxhole for about a month, as the Allied army was not so much stuck. The Germans were stuck as well, but it was this build-up stage. And for those watching, we're going to bring back Joe and probably Flo later on in the summer. But Joe particularly, we're going to bring back on for the attack into Saint-Lô in another 6 weeks' time. We'll bring him in to talk about the fighting on Martinville Ridge and the approach to Saint-Lô itself. But it took effectively 6 weeks to take Saint-Lô. The original objective, or the original hope, was to take Saint-Lô within a week to 10 days. And just like the British had hoped to take Caen within a day, it took another month. So the Battle of Normandy does slow down, although we should remind ourselves that by the time we finished the Battle of Normandy in August, we did come out under schedule. I mean, the 90 days was the prediction of the whole battle, and we ended up beating that by 14 days. But we're entering a stage where in mid-June, things did get static for a while. But anyway, this has been an amazing broadcast. I think, unless anyone else has got anything else to say, I think we'll kind of probably think about bringing it to an end. We've been very, very lucky with the weather. Is there anything else you'd like to get across there, Flo, about your work there and in this particular battlefield? Anything else you'd like to say?
Oh, no, I mean, I just feel fortunate because, Joseph and yourself, you started like a long time ago. I'm kind of, I'm not even 30 years old, but I feel very fortunate to at least have met one of the men that were here with H Company, Joe Balkoski. And I'm just thinking about that right now, that, I was just fortunate to meet one of them. And I'm very thankful for all the 29 Infantry Division men, what they did for my country. And I'm very honored to be here with you guys today. And I hope that people are going to come maybe here in Haye and visit the place and remember what happened here. So because, we always talk about the victory and not enough about, the battles that actually didn't really work or didn't succeed.
I'm thinking there should be some memorial in Haye. That's while we're listening, I think it's about time we put some plaque up there about G Company's losses. As to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing there.
Yeah, no, you're right, absolutely right. And who knows, maybe in 50 or 100 years, I don't even know if people are going to remember that. So that's right. We need to share those stories like you do, Paul, like what you can read in the books of Joseph Balkoski. And I hope this live gonna, bring the interest of many more people, and maybe, a monument here in Haye honoring all those guys that fought, and for some of them died here, would be amazing.
Good
to remember that.
So I think we'll let you get back. You've got to get your Jeep back, or Damien's Jeep back home, and hopefully you make it back before the weather sets in again. There are some black clouds circling you somewhere, but
we're in Normandy,
Yeah, used to be. I'm just going to remind people watching this that Flo is a tour guide. You can find details of his website. Obviously, there's not many tourists coming to Normandy right now with the virus, but when they start coming again, you can book a tour with Flo and his wonderful wife, Jenny, who's American, and see these battlefields. Joe is the author of, there's Flo there. Thank you for doing this, Flo. Well done. And Joe, of course, is the author of numerous books about the 29 Division, particularly the one that covers this engagement here is Beyond the Beachhead, which I've actually got 3 copies of that, but I don't know how I ended up with 3 copies of it. But I've got, this one I got from Joe. I got one that veterans are signed, and I've got a spare one, but it's a very, very good book. And if you read this, watch the video and follow, and the Flow's got a different edition of it there. It's one of the best books about the Normandy campaign, and it's partly because Joe is an excellent historian, but also because he lived in Normandy for a while. And there are some historians, no names, who write about battlefields they never visit. And I think those watching it can tell how well Joe knows this battlefield, because he was able to direct Flo via an internet connection 15 years after he was last here in some cases. That is superior knowledge, and Flo has been able to go back to these places over the last few weeks. So
Yeah.
anyway, I think we'll bring it to an end. So thank you very much, Flo. Thank Jenny.
Thank you, everybody.
Joe,
say
your knowledge is still always amazing and astounding, and your attention to detail and your ability to remember all these things is just absolutely amazing. For those watching, we hope we've brought something a little bit different to you tonight. And remember, we'll be doing more of these live streams. Click subscribe so you get notifications. If you want to be a patron of what we're doing here, that would be very welcome. Tomorrow is Villa Bocage. We said earlier, the advance by the British 7th Armored Division try and loop into Caen from behind from the rear. That'll be an amazing broadcast. We've got 3 camera people out to cover that because there's so much to do. But I'm going to bring this to a halt now. We've done our 90 minutes. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Flo.
Thank you, everybody.
Brilliant. So I'll close down, and it's been amazing. Enjoy the show, watching it, and those who are going to watch it on catch up. And we'll see you again. Thank you very much. This is Paul for World War II TV saying good night wherever you are, and thank you for watching, and thank you for being with us.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Flo.
Bye-bye, Joe. Bye-bye, Paul.
Bye-bye.
Right. Well, I've ended